Hi guys, Holly with Couture Designs here, and today I thought it'd be fun to do a rosary. Rosaries are not just for Catholics. There are other Christians out there who like to use a rosary, and sometimes you might just want to make something for a friend of yours who happens to pray the rosary. So I thought this would be a fun tutorial to do. Um, I don't do the traditional chain type of rosaries. Mine are all on actually a continuous strand, and I use AccuFlex 49 strand. It's a braided steel, and it's very strong and durable, and it holds even my larger beads. For my smaller, lighter stuff, I will use the AccuFlex 7 strand beaded, braided wire, and that works good for the really light things because it's a much thinner wire, but it still holds so well. They're very strong, and the drape on the rosaries is very fine, and it works really nicely. It hangs very nicely when you. Anyways, so I have here my beads. I have my main beads, I have my accent beads, and bead caps, which I like to put on the patters, also known as the Our Fathers. And then I have my center. This is a traditional center, and of course a traditional crucifix. Sometimes I will get very creative with my centers and use different things for them, like other beads that I find that I think look pretty with them. And there's times where I'll hand make my own crosses out of extra beads that I have. So I need some crimps and crimp covers as well to attach them to the bead. And I have some other accent beads that I like to put in there. So let's get started. And as I said, you kind of put together whatever you want. There really isn't any rhyme or reason to it aside from making the pattern of 10 beads and then the 1 bead and then 10 beads, and you go through until you have 50 of the Avas or Hail Marys, and then 4 of the Patters or Our Fathers, and on the 1 strand, and then you come down on the bottom part and you do your basically your beginning prayers beads on those. Okay, so as I said, I have kind of a thing I have started, and I'm using, these look blue on the camera, but they're actually a purple. They're very pretty, and they're fluorite, and they came from Blue Moon Beads, and they're 8mm. And then these smaller ones are 3mm check round crystals, and they're AB, which means Aurora Borealis, which means you can see that they're sparkly. Okay, and then these are Swarovski 4mm bicone crystals. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take off my bracelet because it's hitting up against everything. So I'm going to start my beads. We're going to start off with going around the 50 beads. So we're going to start off with our bottom pattern, starting with the first 10, and then we'll go to our first pattern bead. So I'm just going to do a little decorative thing at the bottom, and I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit so that y'all can see me working a little bit more. And as I say, we're going to pick, you can also pick, because I'm not going to change out any of these, you can also pick 6 patterns. I'm going to go with the 6 darker and larger beads that I see here, because they're 8mm, but nothing, especially when you're coming with stones, is perfect. So I'm going to pull out 6, and 2 will go on the beginning, and 4 will go on the main line. So anyway, so we back out just a little bit here. I'm not sure if you can see. There we go. Okay, so this is my first Ava, and then I'm just going to go through here and enter in or put on 10 beads along with my accent beads, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done with that first set. This is actually very simple The hard part is coming up with a pattern, you know, how you want to set the beads up, what type of, you know, do you want to do something simple, something elaborate. Again, this is actually very good physical therapy. Beading in general is a very good physical therapy for those of you who have arthritis, or any kind of debilitation. It's good to keeps your mind. It helps you with pain management in a way that it keeps your mind off of things. I know that sounds silly, but it really helps me a lot to deal with the pain. So, and I'm sorry if you can hear my Roomba in the background beeping at me. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 10 perfectly on here. And I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can bring the light down more, sorry. Where I can see how purpley that's just, it looks so dark on the camera. But it's a lighter purple. It's almost getting to a dark lavender color, but it looks very bluish on the camera. Anyway, so once we get to that point, we've got 10 beads on. I'm going to put my last accent on. And then I'm going to kind of do what I did at the beginning and incorporate a Swarovski. Now, I've got this bead cap. Sorry, I've got this bead cap I've got here. And it's a little bit bigger than the bead, but I wanted that because I want it to almost cover, I almost want it to obscure the whole thing and just leave a little bit of color coming through. So it really brings out the bead, and it helps because you'll know you're on where you're at, that you're, you know, sometimes you get lost if they're all the same and you don't know which one you're on. At least that happens to me. Just a little fact, most of my rosaries are donated. I donate them to the church for them to sell, or I donate them to individuals. And I've donated quite a bit. So when it comes to that, so I have to find ways, because it can get expensive to do that. I try to find ways to offset that cost by selling my jewelry, and that's one thing that helps. But also I look for really good deals, and I've come across quite a bit. So anyways, let's see, we're going to go into the second one now. We've made our first 10. We've got 4 more to go, and I've already got the bead here, and I'm going to put another one on there when I didn't need to. So you can pick them up more than one at a time. So I'm off camera, I'm sorry. Let me back that. Actually, I'm just going to move my hand down some. And then, so there's so many different designs, and if you look on our Kateri design group page, under the photos, I think I have an album listed rosaries. If not, you can see them on both the Facebook official page and the group page. So, but I post them from time to time. And I will try to sell some of them, only, like I said, to try to offset the cost of making all the ones I donate. So, let's see. You got to keep count of them, too, because they, I have them all rolling towards the camera here. Let me push them off. I'm going to push them on camera here. Put the 6 over here. And then move them over here in their way. There we go. As I told you, I'll get better at doing this. I'm not used to filming myself. So, 2, 4, 6, 7. We need 3 more. And I like the people who do the chain rosaries, the ones with the chains, you know, there are links in between each one, the traditional rosary that you would see they didn't have those in the very beginning. They really just had a line of, and even if just like 10 for a rosary. Those are very intricate, and those people who can do those I'm very impressed with them, because it takes a lot to get the uniform bending of those wires, and they look just so. Someone sent me one in the mail the other day from Italy, and it was beautiful. And the way they did the wire in between each bead, that's so time consuming. That's more patience than I have, but it's also to keep those wires in uniform like that. It was just very beautiful. And I think I went over. So it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I did go over. See, when you talk and you don't pay attention, this is what happens. So anyways, let's see. Got our pattern going here. And then B cap, B cap. And you can see how this is starting to form. It just comes out very pretty. And I don't always use contrasting colors. It's nice for the filming of this. Sometimes I do everything a little bit more. I like the antique, the old style, and you'll see that in some of my work and some of the things. But I also like to do things that are different. I like making children's rosaries out of something different. Keeps their attention at least somewhat. Okay, so now we're going to start. So you can't see, I'm off camera again. And now we're going to start another one. So we finished this one, and we're going to start another one. So we've got a total of 50 beads of the alva beads going to be on the main loop. So that's 2. Don't forget to say some prayers for the people in Florida who are right now appearing to be in the direct line of Hurricane Irma. Still praying for our fellow Texans down in Houston. I'm up here near Dallas in a little town called Fate. So we didn't get anything. We didn't even get any rain. I was shocked. I thought we'd get some rain. We'd had some rain before the hurricane. We had a whole bunch of rain before the hurricane, but none of it came our way. So I'm on 7. There's number 8. And you see how simple this is. It does take... It's simple, but it does take some skill to, especially when you're attaching the wires, to get them where they won't slip. And you have to know, especially when you do a continuous thread like this, you have to know how to put your tension on the wire. Otherwise, you can break or crack your beads, which you don't want to do. So you have to actually leave some string in it so it doesn't become too tight. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. All right. Sometimes I get a little off on my counting there. All right. Sometimes they don't want to go in the hole here. So, all right. So we have 10. And I'm going to double check. I've made some rosaries before, like 5 times in a row, because I missed counting on one of the strands, and I had to take the whole, because I'd already put it all the way together, had to take the whole thing all the way down. And that's why I said beading is a lesson in patience. because you really have to be patient with yourself and with the material. And once you get into it, like I said, it helps keep your mind off of what, if you're having pain or other issues, especially with arthritis or spasticity or any other type of thing. With MS, I get a lot of spasticity pain, and that pulls on the joints, so it makes it, doubly painful. So I try to find alternatives to keep my mind occupied with something else other than how much pain I'm in. But so there's our first one, and then we do another pattern. Put it in. Oh, I'm off camera again. I'm so sorry. So I hope that you're enjoying these tutorials. See, there was on there, and it's going to be loose right now because we're just putting it on. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3. We're going on to our fourth, what they call decade. Decade. Deca means 10, so it's decade is a 10 of these. So the 1. And I keep my strand on the spool. I don't take it off yet. I used to try to measure out how much I was going to need. It took a lot of time to do that, and then a lot of the times I was short of the string. And if I'm too long, then I have this piece that I can't really use for anything. So I was wasting line. So, but you don't have to use AccuFlex. You can use I think it's Beadalon, and you can use lots of different types of beading wire. It's just, I like the way this one lays. It's the one that my parents taught me to use when they taught me how to do this. So let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Okay, one more. And that's 10. Almost got 2 on there. And I find when I'm gonna move my patterns to away from the rest of the beads, it helps me to keep track of where I'm at. Because sometimes I do get lost in my thoughts when I'm doing this. And I like to have, some people like music. I like it to be quiet because with the kids, it's always noisy. So when they're not here and they're at school, it's time for quiet. And I like it, there's just no noise at all whatsoever. That's very relaxing for me. It helps me to just, relax some. Alright. So this should be our last one, our last set of 10. And I pre-counted these, so I'm pretty sure that that's what they are. Okay, so and I have to let this string go down a bit because some of those beads down. Okay, there we go. I just need a little more string. It's around 4. 5, 6, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Okay, grab these last two. This is not going to go on the string. There we go. Okay. I'll have to pour a little more of those on there in just a minute. Okay. Let me move these out of the way so that I can get this going. Okay. So this first one, you need to make sure you count them out. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You can even take your strands and match them together to make sure they're even. Because these little round ones aren't perfectly even. When I put them together, they're not going to be perfectly even, but you have to make sure that there's not an extra bead somewhere. So if they're relatively close, it actually helps you to do that. So you can see how really pretty this is going to be. All right, so this first one's easy. You just grab your crimp bead and you're going to put it through the hole. And I leave room for this to move around. People want to put their crimp all the way to the edge of this, and I don't do that because it ends up over time this rubs back and forth on this metal, and it, even though it's 49 strands, it still will fray it and ends up popping. So I like to give it a little bit of room so it doesn't do that. And then let me see. So I'm trying to put my hand through the camera thing here for. Okay, so you crimp bead cover and you squish it down. And see, I have some room for that. Squish it down and make sure I'm really in there. If you don't, like, these are older bead pliers or crimp pliers. They're older, and so they will tend to slip a little bit. I have a new one. I'm not used to using it. It's like one of those things, you're used to using something and you haven't traded up for the brand new one, like a brand new pair of shoes that just like keep going back to the old shoes. So we've crimped it this way. We have to crimp it this way to close it, and then you want to do it where it's really nice and should stay in its shape. Okay, so now what I have, and that's not the best in the world. See, I'm trying to close it off and it doesn't want to do it. But it's strong and it's going to hold it. So, and the crimp cover is going to cover it. Some of them come out prettier than others, but this is why I use the crimp covers as well, because I like. And then just cut off the end with the wire nippers. Okay, and then I just take my crimp cover, watch me, and just kind of lie it into there. Lay it in there, not lie it in there. And you see how it's in there nice and pretty. Okay, I don't want the loop being closed in the hole, so, oops, I just took it out of there. I'm trying to show you, and I usually go to the back because I want the closing to be in the back, so that where you're not seeing it. I don't want you to see the seam. Okay, so now you can see my loop is down in the hole. I use my finger to hold it, and then I just push these two together. And I'm trying to look at the camera and look through my glasses, which aren't working today for some reason. Let me see. And I'm bumping my camera here. Let's see if there's a way for me to get around. Okay, and then you can see this crimp is closed. You can put a little bit more pressure on that right there to help it close up that lip. And if it gets a little out of shape, don't worry, you just kind of just gently move it into place. All right, so now I need to move my beads down to the end so I can cut my string to the appropriate length. So you can hear me offline here. All right, so what I like to do is I like to basically swirl this into a position before I cut off what I'm going to use, because when people go to hold a rosary, when they're carrying them around, they carry them in their pockets, or they want to put them in a satchel or in their purse, and they want them to just lay right so we can just hold this. If I tighten this up and pulled everything super tight, it'll bend. It won't do this. It won't lay here. So what's going to end up happening is I'm going to end up in the end of this, I'm going to end up having some slack. That's what I was trying to say earlier, and I couldn't get the word out. I'm going to have some slack in my line, not too much, but enough to where it will lay out like it's supposed to. Hold on. Sorry, I'm trying to find a good spot to clip this on, and it wouldn't go around another. I didn't need as much as it's giving me, so. All right, so I clipped off enough to work with, because I have to get it through the other loop, and I need to be able to have the dexterity to work with this. So you see what I'm saying? I needed some working room, so I'm gonna cut off the excess, but it's not as much as I cut off as if I just cut one piece and overdid it or underdid it. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna slide that end into there, and I'm just gonna hold it and pull. Now I want to make sure, because I'm still in this, I still have my pile here, because I don't want it to slip. I want to be able to get even with this other side and keep my I just lost my word again. Keep that space open where I'm gonna have the flexibility to palm my rosary. And you can see how right there where it's bending right there. That's what would happen if I put too much tension on this. So right now, that's why I want to have a nice good pile so I don't get any more than I'm supposed to. Okay, so this is one, there we go. So that's about even. And then I'm gonna crimp this off without hitting my other beads. I'm gonna crimp this off. You gotta squeeze pretty hard. Okay, and now I'm gonna close it off. It's basically you're squeezing two different ways. And this one came out much nicer. Alright, it did more what it's supposed to. But because I need to get I need to start using my new crimp pliers, I won't have that problem if I would just use the right tool. But it's like an old pair of shoes. Okay, and then I'm going flush, and you need your flush cutters. And I'm going right up against the crimp, not on the crimp, but right up against it. and nipping that part off so it's gone. Some people tuck them in, but they pop out. The ones I've had pop out, so I prefer to cut that off. Okay, and then we're gonna put this crimp bead cover on this side. And I'm running out of time here, and I don't know how to pause this to make it stop. So that's the first part. See how nice that came out. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing with keeping it on the spool, and I'm going to have a pattern to start off for the beginning beads. And so and I'll get my crimps last. You can put a crimp on it first and then get it later, but I keep better track of it when it's here. Okay, so I want, again, a little bit of a pattern to start before I start going into my patterns. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the beginning of the rosary and start with what goes before. And sometimes I do a little bit more elaborate of a design on those. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that. I can't believe I've already gone over 30 minutes. We have 3 beads before we get to the pattern. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then finish it off here. I'll probably have to speed up some of this as we're making it, and I'll speed up the parts where we're being redundant. Okay, and this is our last large bead here. And then our last 3 beads, if I can get it on there. Okay, so now we still have it on the string. I'm sorry about messing with that camera there. All right, and then so we want to go with same thing we did before. Give ourselves some room. It helps if you get it in the right spot on the crimp bead, on the tool. Close that nice and tight. You see how that kind of makes it like a semi horseshoe, and then we just close it off and go around it and make sure it's nice and secure. You can hear it popping. Okay, pull on it, make sure it's nice and in there. Cut off the excess. Get our crimp cover. Make sure you have your back turned to it so the seam is on the back. I basically just pinch it down between my fingers. And then close it up. And then close it up there like that. Scoot all that down. Do the same thing on this little tiny part that I did with the big one. I don't want this to bend. I want it to just easily be supple and go right into where it belongs. So I'm going to just cut a little bit off. Get another crimp. This one's a little bit more tricky putting on the crucifix because the bead cover, the crimp cover wants to go through the hole of the crucifix. Now, I'm working with the back, so I have it turned backwards because I have the center turned backwards. Put that bead cover on there. And pull. Now, I got out of being in my thing, so I'm just gonna kind of just turn this, and it's gonna push, well, actually it's pushed me right out of the crimp cover. Okay, so now I'm just gonna give it a little bit more room. And I'm going to hold this in place. And I'm going to move the crimp with, I keep hitting the camera, I'm sorry. I'm going to move the crimp up with my tool and pinch it. I keep moving this camera. And then have it right in the right place. Pinch it down. Now, it's going to look like I have too much slack in my, I'm going to pull on it just a little bit to make sure it's done. Bead cover, crimp cover, excuse me. Let's see, get those out of the way, and I'll show you in a minute. All right, oops. When I pull too hard, this is actually called a jump ring. I normally use a split ring because of this very problem. But don't worry about it because a jump ring, I can get it back on there in just a minute. So I'm going to close this split ring. Close this bead cover. And I need a tool. It's good when mistakes happen, then you can see how to fix them. And what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to put a split ring on this instead of a jump ring. I don't like the jump rings for this main purpose right here. Well, not with my rosaries anyways. And I'm just going to put it back on there. And close it off. Some people glue them, but you've heard me in the last two videos, I don't like glue very much. It definitely has its purposes and its place, but I don't like to use it very much if I can keep from doing that because glue doesn't hold everything. Alright, so this is how it came out. It's very, very pretty. This is heirloom quality. I guarantee all of my material to hold and we'll fix it as long as you still have the beads, and I still have the beads to if you lose them. But this is what the rosary came out looking like. It's very pretty. Someone will enjoy praying on it very much as a gift or for themselves. I hope that you enjoyed working with me, and I hope to do some more videos. Talk to you soon. God bless.